Okay, good evening.
Did you get it? I didn't mess
The
it up.
Finance Committee meeting for the Gary Common Council for Tuesday, February 12th is now called to order. This evening's agenda, we have 4 ordinances. CPO 2019-02, which is an ordinance authorizing the City of Gary, Lake County, Indiana, to make temporary loans to meet current obligations for the use of the Police Pension Fund and Fire Pension Fund, and in anticipation of revenues to be received in such fund in the year 2019, authorizing the issuance of revenue anticipation notes to evidence such loans and the sale of such notes, and appropriating and pledging the revenues to be received in such fund to the punctual payment thereof, sponsored by Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson, City of Gary, and Angela Hayes, City Controller. CPO 2019-03, an ordinance amending ordinance number 9236, revising 2019 appropriations for the Genesis Center Operating Budget Fund 268 and Fund 279 for the fiscal year beginning January 1, 2019, and ending December 31, 2019, sponsored by Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson and Angie Hayes, City Controller. CPO 2019-04, an ordinance appropriating 2019 budgets for the operating expenses of grants and special revenue funds for Green Urbanism and Youth Services Bureau of the City of Gary for the fiscal year beginning January 1, 2019 and ending December 31, 2019, sponsored by Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson and Angie Hayes, City Controller. CPO 2019-06, an ordinance transferring 2019 LIT funds to the general fund, sponsored by Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson, City of Gary, Angie Hayes, City Controller. An ordinance authorizing the City of Gary, Lake County, Indiana, to make temporary loans to meet the current obligations for the use of the Police Pension Fund and Fire Pension Fund, and in anticipation of revenues to be received in such fund in the year 2018, authorizing the issuance of revenue anticipation notes to evidence such loans and the sale of such notes to Fifth Third Bank, and appropriating and pledging the revenues to be received in such fund to the punctual payment thereof, sponsored by Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson, City of Gary, Salida Green, City Controller. Present this evening is the Councilman at Large, Councilman Herb Smith, Councilwoman of the First District, Rebecca Wyatt, our Council President, Ron Brewer, our Councilwoman for the Fifth District, Linda Barnes Caldwell, and our Council Legal Advisor, Attorney Rinja Williams. And our Mayor is here, and our Controller is here. And we are ready to start, but we're going to change the order of the agenda. We're going to take CPO 2019-03 first. So that is the one for the Genesis Center. So we're ready.
Good evening, everyone.
What do you need? Did I say that? Sorry,
No,
I
that's
just
what-
read it.
That was a
Yeah.
reset.
I just read it. I am so
Right.
sorry, you guys.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
that's correct. That's correct.
We'll correct it.
Okay.
On Fund 268, we are going to eliminate the full-time bookkeeper position because there is no need for a full-time position. And that would give a decrease of our budget of $25,000. But the Genesis Center Board increased the salary of the secretary due to the extra duties that she has. So that's a proposed change of $2,850, which is a savings of $25,500 for Fund 268.
Anybody have any questions? You're gonna eliminate the bookkeeper.
Yes,
You don't have any need for a bookkeeper.
well, we do, but I'm gonna make her part.
You're gonna do that part.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Ready?
Anybody have any questions?
Madam Chair, then what is the Fund 268? Is that one of the funds that is the city funding? Okay.
the bookkeeper part-time, I'm gonna discuss it on Fund 279. If you're ready.
Uh-huh.
Okay, then on Fund 279,
Mhm.
we're going to eliminate the lead wait staff and the lead bartender, which will add the bookkeeper in part-time at $15 an hour, not to exceed $20,000 per year. Those are the changes.
Anybody got any questions? Lead wait staff and the lead bartender?
Those positions were never filled.
You what?
They were never filled.
Okay, you didn't have them anyway.
No, ma'am.
Any questions? Anybody?
Madam
No.
Chair, how many hours do you expect that the bookkeeper is going to use?
I would say maybe like 4 to 5 hours, maybe a couple of days a week.
How's business at the Genesis?
It's doing pretty good. We're steady, consistent.
Okay. Mr. Nowacki?
I just attended an event, the United Negro College Fund breakfast, and it appeared to me that the staff had been working at full tilt on that event. They all seem to be, it seemed to be very, very busy. Will the Genesis Center will they be able to provide proper level of service, cutting the the staff that's directly serving the public at those events with this, with these changes?
Those positions were never filled.
Huh?
Those positions were never
Oh,
filled.
they were not filled?
No.
Because I would suggest that they all look like they were working so hard, maybe you'd have to look at filling those positions, because I gotta tell you, everyone looked like they were working hard. There was no one resting.
It shouldn't have been listed.
Well, but you also don't need people rushing around to the point where they, just appeared to, they provided good service, but they looked like they were really working full tilt. So you think you'd still be able to?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I finally come up with a question.
Yes, sir.
Okay, are there, after looking at this, and the lead wait staff is eliminated, and the bartender is eliminated, are there any other, slots in here that are not filled?
No, everything else is filled.
Okay. Just trying to make sure we're using every dollar wisely. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Madam Chair, one last question. Have we made any headways on the signage process?
I talked to a guy that did the rail cats, and I'm waiting on a quote from him, and I'm looking for 2 other people for quotes, because I've got 3 quotes.
So it look like we may get a sign this year?
Maybe. I think it's right.
Perhaps, we hope. Yeah.
Because I know we keep talking about the tourism dollars that you
Yes.
use, and we've been going around with this for a while. Yeah. So that's why I'm bringing that up
Okay.
again.
We'll get a sign.
Okay.
We'll have a sign this year.
Okay. All right. Well, the mayor has spoken.
Madam Chair, I have one more
Go ahead.
question. So, by eliminating the full-time bookkeeper, are we gonna save on, fringe benefits like
Yes,
the
ma'am.
health insurance?
Yes, ma'am.
Cause I just did the, calculation and it looks like, if the part-time one works 4 hours a week, then we're still at, we're still at 20,000, we're just right over 20,000.
Well, she wouldn't work every day.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Is that it? Anybody else? Okay, thank you very much. Please forgive me, Ms. Hayes. I'm sorry, I just read this and I wasn't paying any attention. I'm sorry. Okay. CPO 2019-02.
We have an amended ordinance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe the mayor is going to be speaking on this ordinance. And I do want to say that the change is on page 2.
Madam Chair and members of the committee, while this is an amended ordinance, we know that it appropriately has to be filed on the floor and appropriately amended in the open council meeting, but we wanted you to see the change.
Okay.
And the change is, if you will turn to page 2, the original ordinance has a maturity date of December 31st, 2019. And as it relates to the general fund note, so that would be paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4. We now have it maturing February 28, 2020. And then the second change is that
It was on the same page, just we had the revenues.
okay, and then on section 1, that third line, it originally said revenues to be received in 2019. This says 2019 and 2020. So those are the two changes. And I'll explain that in my presentation.
Okay.
Last year, we came before this body as it related to our desire to do a sale-leaseback. We talked about the fact that it was a part of our financial recovery plan. That sale-leaseback continues to be a part of our financial recovery plan, but because of a variety of factors, the interest rate being too high in terms of our negotiations with parties, the fact that there was some negative publicity relative to Fund 224, and that needed to be resolved. It has prevented us from making an agreement that would reach really the spirit and the letter of what we brought before the body. In addition to that, the need that we anticipated would occur in October of last year was solved in some ways by the fact that we got $5 million more than we had originally anticipated in our tax revenue, and we really, through our freeze committee, slowed down the payment, and in many instances reduced expenses. And probably the primary expense that was reduced in 2019 this year, in January and February, are our health care benefits, our health care expenses. As a consequence, we weren't faced with a do or die situation as we had anticipated. But we have been monitoring our cash every month for really the last 2 years. And as we get to the end of February, we know that we will not have the cash to do those things like payroll and pay our utility expenses. We also know that the sale-leaseback will not close because we still have that pending until the end of April 30th. And so we are looking for an interim loan that essentially takes the place of what would have been the sale-leaseback for the first really 3 months or the second 3 months of this year. And what that essentially does is that when the sale leaseback closes, we will take out this $8 million loan that we are anticipating in this ordinance, which means that it would be just like we had gotten the sale leaseback, but we just delayed the process a bit later. And so in addition to this, you are accustomed to doing tax warrants for the police and fire pension. This is that, and this actually is the standard tax warrants that we issue for the police and fire pensions. They're paid off at the end of the year, and that does not change. But the difference here is that essentially what we're doing, we're using the same source of revenue, the LIT. It would again be taken out or paid through the sale leaseback, and again that would be done at the end of April. The difference, and the reason that we had the difference, I should tell you, is that by taking this out to February of 2020, it allows us to get lines of revenue in and would allow us to just be more safe in terms of making sure that there are no snafus, there are no delays relative to the sale leaseback. And we wanted to be able to take it out as far as possible to ensure our payroll and the vendor payments.
Comments, questions?
So, Madam Chair, so Mayor, that's just a safeguard, what you just explained to us, taking out the long term to 2020, just a safeguard, but we
Yes.
can repay earlier.
Oh, yeah, no, and we anticipate as soon as the sale leaseback closes, this loan will be repaid. We wouldn't have both. So this is essentially a part of the 35 million that we've always anticipated in the sale leaseback. Had we gotten the sale leaseback in October, November, December, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. We didn't really, we've gotten revenue in, and this is really the time that we have now seen that without this, then there would be a jeopardy relative to the payroll.
I can say I'm okay with it because I know you have been working with the finances very closely. Even I have gotten some calls, some things inside the council that were brought to my attention on some things, and I was able to investigate some of those things too. I understand about how close we was last year in October going into November.
Yes.
We're very appreciative to the taxes that we received, additional $5 million. That was a big plus for us. But I know we're waiting for, but you have made other changes, and I'm happy to hear about the other change that was made, even with insurance. We talked about the freeze committee. I think all those are pluses that we moved in the right direction. You didn't just give us your plan and not do anything with it. You're demonstrating. So I can say I can support it.
This is all a part of the financial recovery plan. The only difference is that this is only a part of that 35 million. I should also, since you brought that up, Mr. President, in addition to the reduction in the insurance, we've also moved most of the city staff out of 839, and we anticipate that being done by June, by the end of June. And what that means is that we won't see the traditional expenses that we see in that building for cooling, for repairs, for all of the things that we have been consistently saddled with at the 839 building. We also have been able to sell some property, most recently 15th and Colfax sold, and there is work starting there, and some other sales that will be, that we anticipate may very well occur as well.
And that's good.
Very good.
Yeah, that's good.
So much here.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I just had a question, why do we need to extend it to February if we're planning to pay it back with a sales leaseback, which should be closed by April at the latest?
Because if we didn't close it, if something happened by some far stretch, we want to make sure that the coverage is there in terms of the monthly payments that we receive in the lit revenue to sustain us, to sustain the loan or to cover the level of debt that we're borrowing.
Okay. And then just two other things, just because I'm relatively new at this, it's all right to do the tax anticipation beyond the end of the calendar year?
We're not doing a tax anticipation. The tax anticipation ends in 19. The difference is the lit. But you can also pay off the tax anticipation. For instance, this year, we paid it off January 15th.
Okay, and that's where I'm getting confused, because this is 2019-02, and this is going to be paid back with the police and fire pension fund and lit.
So you've got two separate, got two separate loans.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the tax anticipation warrant, which is scheduled to be repaid at December 31st.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and then separate from that, you have the $8 million, which is a portion of the sale leaseback that we would have gotten. But it's an anticipation note against the same revenue stream that is paid with our sale leaseback.
The same revenue is
It's
just
the
the
lit
lit.
revenue,
Okay, got
yes.
it. Okay, all right, thank you, thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Nowacki? Oh, okay.
Amazing.
Do that Wednesday now.
Yeah. Huh?
It's not that I hadn't thought of anything.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we know that we'll have an amendment on this ordinance on the floor on next council meeting. Okay. 04. Budgets for the operating expenses of grants and special revenue funds, green urbanism and youth services.
Working best, lady.
Good evening.
Hi.
So this is an ordinance to include for environmental affairs and youth services bureau some grants that were missed when we did them originally back in November. So I was just informed by our director that she would also like to amend this ordinance as well. Do you have the?
Yeah, there's a small grant that we received from the Lake Michigan Coastal Program. Yes, not all the copies, but there's some. A small grant in an amount of $5,000 that would be matched by $5,000 to do environmental training. So that I can get copies, but
Okay.
and that's just to do environmental training for municipal employees as well as residents.
Did you say municipal employees? Okay, so we already have those people?
Yeah, so the training, the types of environmental trainings we're
Mhm.
talking about is like pollution prevention, certification for OSHA. It could range from green infrastructure,
Okay.
maintenance, those type of trainings.
Okay, because I thought at one time we had
Maintenance.
talked about hiring some people to do that.
We will have, but, as a part of ongoing maintenance, once you do those installations, you need to have staff, equipped to maintain those type of, green infrastructure projects that we are installing.
Okay,
Yeah, so,
Okay.
there's a learning curve associated with that.
okay. Anybody have any questions?
Madam Chair, I have one. Have any of these dollars been expended already this year?
No, we haven't spent any grant funds.
For either that or youth services? Have any dollars in this ordinance been expended this year?
No.
Okay. I was checking because it said through January 1 through December 31st of 19, and if so, we would have to ratify it. But if no monies have been expended, then it's not necessary.
Any other questions?
So,
Yes.
youth service bureau
Yeah,
does,
so we did have staff working in 2 of our homes.
Okay. The only thing that's needed when we make the motion, that it be made to approve and ratify.
Approve and ratify.
So would you like to
All
go
right.
through each of the funds that are here then?
Yes.
Would you like, Madam Chair, would you like to go through each of the funds that have been presented here to explain them?
Yes, if you would, please. Mhm.
use your copy here, same way.
Okay.
Okay, so their fund, 233 is for landfill post-closure activities. So this is not a grant, but these are revenues that we receive from our JPIT fund to do maintenance activities and monitoring activities at the landfill, the closed landfill. So this is required by our post-closure plan, that we do things like daily, weekly, quarterly, and annual testing, monitoring activities, and submit those reports to our state regulators in order to meet the requirements that are in our post-closure plan.
Will we ever be able to do anything with that dump?
The landfill.
site? But, yeah, the landfill. Dump.
I used to think so, but there are some challenges in terms of maintaining the site. As you can see, this budget is for $250,000.
Mhm.
We were spending a lot of money in terms of getting caught up to upkeep standards. Like in the past, there were some things that happened that we were not meeting the post-closure requirements. But to date, we've done things like replace the cover, the landfill cover. The cover, without going into a lot of details, it's really complicated. Most landfills are closed out with a clay cover and using turf grasses. Our landfill has a clay liner, 3 feet of sand, beach grass.
Okay.
Need I say more?
Okay.
So the erosion is ongoing, and then the invasive species that are, the plants that are out there really keeps us working. That's just one of the things. And then there's maintenance on the pumps that are out there. There's gas well monitoring equipment, there are passive flares, so it's quite expensive to maintain the landfill.
So you're still receiving gases out of the landfill also?
So we, there's still gas burning off at the landfill.
Madam Chair.
Mhm.
Where did you say this
What is
revenue
the
comes
time?
from?
The JPIT, revenue that we generate from the JPIT, and then also from the state. So we have a trust fund, an amount of $1 million that is being managed by Centier Bank. As we do these maintenance activities, we can be reimbursed for those expenses, up to a certain amount annually.
So when you say the revenue is from the JPIT, it's really just from this trust fund? I mean, the JPIT
Well,
doesn't.
we have to have upfront dollars in order to get reimbursed.
Right.
So
Mhm.
we have to have a cash flow in order to get the reimbursements from the trust fund. And usually the expenses exceed the allocated amount of money that the state will allow, which is about 3% for reimbursement. So if you're spending, yeah, that's a lot. That totals to less than about $30,000 a year that you can reimburse from, and I can spend that in 2 months. Okay, any other questions on that? So we have the JPIT landfill management. As we receive monies from operating the JPIT to fill in the, there's a pit out there, it's a really deep hole that we're using clean fill to fill the hole. And so we generate revenue from that operation, and that money is placed into this fund. The next budget is Green Urbanism 845. This is a combination of monies that we receive for doing project management on grant projects from different funding sources, and then we take those dollars and from those grant projects and reinvest it back into things like training, hiring contractors so we just have a small amount of here for contractors because we have to have a landscape design, or we may need a engineer to help us out in terms of doing things. We also use the funds for hiring a botanist. We use Sandy O'Brien to help us work with the community on different types of projects. We also use these funds to help out with our urban ag program. So just a small amount of money here, this $74,000. On Fund 866 is a NIFLIP grant, a National Fish and Wildlife Foundation grant that we received to do a green infrastructure project. One of the planning activities we did was to grade a green, which is to take a hard surfaces and then turn it into a green space. So one of the projects we're working on is Buchanan Street Gateway project, and we will roll out a RFP really soon to hire a landscaper to start doing some of the implementation of that project. And that's all I have.
And then the last page is for the Youth Services Bureau. Hi.
So this is for Fund 857. It is our Cities Connecting Children with Nature National League of Cities TA implementation grant. So what we did is originally we had 2 positions, and that's our major change. We had 2 positions, which would be a program assistant and a recreation aide. Those individuals would only work a matter of, I think they would work maybe 2 months. So we eliminated those positions to make 1 position, which would be a nature leader. That position would work throughout the year. So they would work with the summer program and continue to work through the seasons with our after school program. They would work 15 to 20 hours a week. So that was the major change that we did for this grant.
Questions, anybody, comments? No. Mr. Nowacki?
I was going to ask about the contractor at the J-Pit. Is that still the Beach DeBoer Corporation?
Yeah, Beach DeBoer is the current operator.
Yeah. So the follow-up question is, do we have some method for accounting for the work that they're, I mean, do we trust them just to represent themselves, or Do we have some way to
Oversight.
I
keep
provide,
a check?
the Department of Environmental Affairs provides management over the activities of the operator.
So you count the trucks coming in and out?
We do not count the trucks. They have a operating procedure in place that we use, and they submit reports to us. And on the the loads that are coming in, loads that are rejected, and then there's some monitoring activities they have to do out there that's required by IDEM. And there's maintenance of the facility, make sure that things are in place at the facility. And we have an inspector that goes out there on a weekly basis to monitor activity at the JPIC.
On a weekly basis, but they operate on a daily basis.
They do.
I want to make one mention that we may come before you again to amend our budget for the Cities Connecting Children with Nature. We may receive an additional funding of $50,000 in March. We'll find that out. So I just wanted you guys to know, see again, that's because our plan came through and they wanted us to go ahead and go further with it. So
Okay.
we may come back.
Come on back.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I just wanted to add because, you know, there is sometimes a lot of consternation. That Connecting Kids to Nature grant is through the National League.
To NLC. Okay.
So that is one of the benefits, one of the many benefits that comes as a result of that relationship.
Very good. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Okay. All right, 06.
This is an ordinance that was also done last year, allowing the department to be able to move lit dollars, approximately $4.4 million to the general fund to cover purposes for the general fund. The current ordinance reads for payroll and health insurance expenses, but maybe it should be amended to say any lawful purpose for the general fund to cover any expenses we may receive, we need to use those dollars for. That would be my only comment on that maybe we should make that change to
I'm sorry, I missed that.
health. Currently, and what was submitted last year with the ordinance was that the lit dollars would be used to cover payroll and health insurance expenses, and I just
Right.
wondered if an amendment should be done to say any lawful purposes for the general fund. So that way we'd be able to pay any vendor payments that we needed to pay.
It can, but that amendment would have to be made to the original ordinance.
Correct.
Not to just this appropriation ordinance. So that would have to be brought back to the council if you want to add that language to the ordinance that passed. This is just to appropriate the money, correct? Okay. So we wouldn't do it by amending this, we would have to amend the ordinance that was passed.
That was passed originally.
So then, does it make, sorry, no, okay, no. Then we probably
Okay.
not make that change then, okay.
All right,
If we decide to make that change, we'll bring the original back.
okay,
Yeah,
all right.
okay.
Anybody have any questions or comments about this one?
Madam Chair, I just remember, don't we have to use some of it just for public safety, or don't we have to use some of the lit dollars just for one thing and?
Public safety, yes.
Okay, so we're cool with that, I mean, we
Yes.
have enough to do the public safety part and still
Yes.
do this, okay.
Yes.
That's a different source of revenue. So we get two different sources. One, this is the economic development portion. And then there's a separate
Yes.
public safety portion
This will help.
of that revenue that's separate and apart from this.
From this one?
From this.
So both, in 2019-02, we were using the economic portion of lit.
Correct.
Okay, got it, and then
Yes.
this too. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
We've been making this transfer for the last about 3 or 4 years.
I would say so, yes.
Pardon?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Is that it? Anybody else? Oh,
No.
no. Well, Madam Mayor, did you have something you wanted to say?
I do not.
Oh, okay. All right, well, then if there are no further questions or comments, that was the last item on the agenda. So, meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.